There's a test that takes only 3 minutes, and it might already be sitting in your medical file, completely unused. The test is built to answer one blunt question: is your brain aging on schedule, or is it quietly sprinting ahead of your birth certificate? Most people never take it. The test is not expensive. It is not complicated. This is 2 tasks, on paper, at your kitchen table. Today, you're taking it, right here, in the next few minutes. And by the end, you'll have an actual number for how your brain is doing. Let's start with why almost nobody's heard of it, because the reason says a lot. Earlier this year, researchers asked a large group of American adults over 40 how much they care about their brain health. 99% said it matters as much as their physical health. Same survey, one more question. How many of them actually know what to do about it? 9%. Out of 99, only 9% have a plan. That gap is the entire reason this video exists. I'm not going to tell you another list of foods to eat or supplements to buy. Here's what makes this particular test smarter than the way you're probably already checking yourself: forgetting a name mid-conversation, misplacing your glasses, blanking for a second on why you walked into a room. None of that is a reliable signal, because your brain runs on 2 almost separate systems: one that stores and pulls up memories, and one that plans, organizes, and puts things in the right order. That second system is what lets you load a dishwasher without forgetting the soap, follow a recipe step by step without losing your place, or drive somewhere familiar while carrying on a conversation. A rough night's sleep or a distracting conversation can knock out either system temporarily, in a brain that's otherwise completely fine. The test doctors actually use checks both systems back to back in one sitting. That's the part a casual self-check can never do. Let me show you how it works. Grab a pen and paper. If somebody's in the room with you, even better, have them run this part for you. Step 1. 3 words, said out loud, that have nothing to do with each other. Something like apple, watch, penny. Repeat them back once, so you know you actually heard them right. Step 2. Draw a clock. A full circle, every number in its proper place, and then set the hands to 10 past 11. Not 3 o'clock. 10 past 11 on purpose. It's a slightly awkward time to draw, chosen by researchers who clearly enjoy watching people's brains work harder than they'd like. If arthritis, a tremor, or an old stroke makes drawing difficult, there's a fully spoken backup version doctors can use instead. No pen required. This isn't only for people with steady hands. Step 3. The one people always forget is coming. Without glancing back at anything, say the 3 words again. That's the whole test. There's actually a name for it: the Mini-Cog. Designed by a researcher named Dr. Sue Borson at the University of Washington, back in the year 2000, built specifically to work across languages, education levels, and cultures, because older memory tests loaded with vocabulary questions were unfairly failing people who'd simply never gone to college, not people whose brains were actually struggling. Here's how you score it. 1 point for each word you got back, 0 to 3. Then check the clock. Numbers roughly in the right spots, hands landing close to 10 past 11. That's 2 more points. A wobbly circle or slightly crooked hands still counts, as long as the logic holds up. Numbers crammed onto one half of the face, or missing outright, is what actually costs you. Add it up. 5 is a perfect score. Anything under 3 is what's called a positive screen, worth an actual conversation with your doctor, not a diagnosis, not a reason to panic. And that number matters more than you'd think. In one of the largest, most representative studies on this test, more than 1,100 people screened this way. This exact combination correctly flagged about 3 out of every 4 people who had a genuine cognitive problem, and correctly cleared roughly 9 out of 10 who didn't. Good, not perfect. Which is exactly why a low score starts a conversation instead of ending one. One more honest note before you judge yourself too harshly. Nerves alone can cost you a point or 2. If a camera, a stopwatch, or a room full of family made you rush, retake it quietly later before reading anything into a single low score. And a 3 or a 4 isn't automatically a clean bill of health either, especially if it's a drop from how you'd have scored a year ago. The trend matters as much as the number. Now, let's focus on which part gave you trouble. Nailing the clock but blanking on all three words points your doctor toward one set of follow-up questions. A messy, disorganized clock, paired with a clean 3 for 3 on the words, points toward a completely different set. Memory-first trouble and planning-first trouble are not the same story, which is part of why doctors run both halves instead of picking one. Neither pattern is a diagnosis by itself, but doctors read the shape of a low score, not just the number attached to it. This exact test is also one of just a few tools the Alzheimer's Association specifically recommends for the cognitive check. It's free, by the way, fully covered under Medicare Part B, separate from your regular physical, available once every 12 months, whether or not you've ever mentioned a memory concern out loud. If you've never had it, all it takes is asking your doctor's office to confirm it's on the agenda before your next visit. Here's the uncomfortable part. Researchers surveyed Medicare patients directly and found fewer than 1 in 3 actually remember getting a structured test like this one at that visit. Not because anyone's hiding it from you, because a 15-minute visit with a dozen other boxes to check rarely leaves room for a stopwatch. To be fair, the government's own preventive care task force says there isn't yet enough hard evidence to recommend this test for every single symptom-free adult on Earth. Fair enough. But not proven for everyone and not useful for you are two very different sentences, especially if you, or someone who loves you, has already noticed something's off. Now, before you spiral over a low score, wait, here's something almost nobody tells you. A failing grade on this exact test doesn't always mean your brain is aging badly. Sometimes, it means you're depressed. Psychiatrists calls it pseudo-dementia, coined back in 1961, decades before anyone bothered separating the two conditions from each other. Depression can knock out concentration and memory hard enough to mimic dementia almost perfectly on paper. By some estimates, as many as 3 in 10 older adults treated for depression get mistakenly labeled with Alzheimer's instead. There's one telling difference, if you know to look for it. Someone with true dementia usually plays it down. I'm fine, everyone forgets things. Someone whose memory is being hijacked by depression usually does the opposite. They bring it up unprompted. They worry out loud about it. Depression-driven memory loss is often completely reversible once the depression itself gets treated. Real dementia doesn't reverse. This does. So a low score is not a verdict. It is a reason to ask better questions, with an actual professional, before you or your family jump to the worst possible conclusion. Your brain doesn't wait for a birthday to start aging faster, or slower, than everyone else's. Researchers can now estimate a person's brain age from a scan, how old your brain structurally looks, compared to how old you actually are. In one study tracking people in their 40s and 50s, years before any memory complaint ever showed up, that gap between scan age and birth certificate age tracked closely with two things: blood pressure and alcohol intake, not genetics. Not the gene researchers usually blame first for Alzheimer's risk: blood pressure and alcohol. Some of the aging happening in your brain right now is already sitting inside your control, years before it would ever show up on a test like the one you just took. So what actually slows it down? Last year, researchers finished the largest American trial of its kind, called US Pointer. Over 2,000 adults in their 60s and 70s, split into two groups, each handed a different version of the same basic habits. Move more, eat better, challenge your brain with computerized training exercises, and keep tabs on your heart health numbers. One group got a simple list and a good luck. The other met as a team 38 times over 2 years, with a clinician regularly reviewing their numbers alongside them. Both groups' brains improved after 2 years, but the group with actual structure and accountability pulled ahead by a wide, statistically real margin, and it held up no matter their age, sex, ethnicity, heart health, or even whether they carried the specific gene most linked to Alzheimer's risk. Yes, that is correct. The gene that scares people most in this entire conversation did not cancel out the benefit. Structure did what no single supplement, food, or gene ever has. It moved the number, for everyone, regardless of what they were born with. No pill did that. No $10 brain training app did that. Certainly no jellyfish-derived powder promising to turn back the clock in a bottle did that. The science behind all of this has also moved faster than most people have noticed. Until recently, Getting a real answer about what's happening inside an aging brain usually meant a spinal tap or an expensive brain scan. That changed last year. 2 separate blood tests got cleared for doctors to use instead. One for specialists confirming a diagnosis. One for regular primary care doctors to help rule it out early. A single blood draw can now do what used to require a needle in your spine. Neither one is meant for someone with 0 symptoms walking in off the street. Both still require a doctor's referral, after a real concern has already surfaced. None of that replaces the 3-minute test you just did. If anything, it depends on it entirely. Every one of those advanced tools only gets used once somebody, somewhere, notices a change worth checking in the first place. The 3-minute test is still the front door. So when does a rough 3 minutes turn into an actual conversation with your doctor? Not from missing one word today. Everyone misses a word today. Watch for this instead. Failing that same test more than once, weeks apart, with the same or worse results. A clock that isn't just messy, but structurally wrong, numbers bunched into one corner, or entire hours left out completely. And maybe the biggest tell of all is that it's your spouse, your adult kid, or your closest friend who brings up the pattern before you ever noticed it yourself. Any one of those, especially stacked together, deserves 15 minutes with a doctor, not a search engine at midnight. Many doctors will simply repeat this same test at your next wellness visit for anyone sitting in that gray zone, precisely because one score is a snapshot, never a verdict. And one last honest thing. Researchers estimate roughly 200,000 Americans under 65 are already living with a younger onset version of this. If you're watching on behalf of someone younger than you'd expect, the same 3 minutes still apply. If this helped you see your own number a little more clearly, hit subscribe. Vital Years is just getting started, and there's a lot more straight talk like this on the way. And I'm genuinely curious. When you drew that clock a minute ago, did 10 past 11 throw you off more than you expected? Tell me in the comments. See you in the next one.